Hello and welcome to chapter 6 of my journey of how I became a worldwide, international, top fashion multi-millionaire model. No, that last bit was a lie. I was never a multi-millionaire, but I was a top fashion model. And yeah, this is my story. So, from the last episode, I told you that my agent in New York had called my agent in England, and he was like, get Jamie to New York because I'm gonna make him into a star, right? That's what was gonna happen. I was gonna go to New York, and all of a sudden I was gonna hit the ground running. I was gonna shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and become a star. And that's exactly what I thought would happen. That's not what happened in this first couple of months anyway. So as soon as this happened, basically my New York agency booked me a flight, and I was ready to go, and I wanted to go as soon as humanly possible. The last time that I had been in New York was when I was 19 years old, and that was off the back of, I did basically 3 months in Virginia as a camp counselor, and like I was taking kids up like high ropes courses, and we went into the mountains, we did climbing. It was this really amazing experience. And I went to New York with my girlfriend that I met at that camp at the time, and I left from New York to go back to England to continue university. And I remember flying away from New York, seeing the Manhattan skyline and thinking, this is the last time I'm ever going to go to New York. Because, you know, I wasn't, as I say, a very affluent person. I was kind of looking into a career of like academia or theatre acting, which I knew wasn't going to pay much money and was going to take up a lot of my time. So I didn't think I'd ever be able to afford a trip, you know, just to go and see New York. I'm not a huge city person to begin with. You know, I'd much prefer to go on holiday to somewhere beautiful and relaxing. You know, I'd spent 3 weeks in New York when I was 19 anyway, and it was hectic and I was so tired from it. So bye New York, I will never see you again. Little did I know, 4 years, 5 years later, I would have a modeling agent, a high fashion agency, calling saying, get Jamie to New York, he's gonna be a star. So anyway, so I packed my bags and I was getting ready, and this is kind of like a complex, maybe legal issue with the whole thing, but at the time I didn't have a visa. I'm not sure if this is something that I should say, but I didn't have a visa. So I was kind of going under the premise of a holiday trip, when in reality I was going to see clients and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, I got on the plane and I set off to New York. I already had the apartment that I was staying at. I knew where my agency was. I knew Wi-Fi, etc., and all that infrastructure in America was significantly better than in Paris and Milan. So I wasn't too worried about getting around. And also, obviously, I can speak the language. I mean, I've been here for 10 years now, and sometimes I do question whether me and my American friends are speaking the same language, but we do speak the same language, so it's going to be much easier. Back then as well, I remember this was like a 6-hour flight, and 6 hours was a long time for someone like me, you know, like I'm like ADHD, I'm like moving around all the time, and 6 hours on a flight was kind of the idea of hell to me, honestly. Even that 3 hours to Milan was a lot. And you know, fast forward 8 years or something, and I'm flying to and from Los Angeles to England like multiple times per year, which is like 11 to 13 hours each way. So I got used to flying, but this time I wasn't used to flying. I still had no money, so I'm like super paranoid about that, but it's all good. I'm just going with it. And so I get on the plane and I fly to New York, and I get off at JFK, and I had to get this huge train back into the center of New York, and I figured out that I was staying on Upper East Side, which is like top right hand corner of New York, and the area was beautiful. Apparently it was like old Jewish money or something. The area was beautiful, it was really nice. It was quite quiet, honestly, in contrast to a lot of the rest of New York. It was quite quiet, and I'll never forget, there's someone that's going to meet me at the apartment. There's another model that's going to meet me there. And so I'm outside the apartment. I've got all my clothes and my luggage, same as every other time I go to a different country. I haven't got to go to the agency straight away this time. I was going to learn that things in New York are slightly more relaxed than they were in Europe, you know? So I got to the apartment. I'm waiting for the model to come, and the other model that's staying there to come and let me in, but he wasn't there. So I decided, okay, well, I'll just go and I'll get some food. And so I went to a place which was just across the road, which I'd end up frequenting quite a lot over the next couple of years. And I remember I ordered this salad, and it was like a spicy Mexican salad. It was called like chicken Mexican salad. Still, I'm really eating as healthy as I possibly can. And I'll never forget, honestly, I'll never forget. This was such a moment for me. Receiving my salad and it being almost like 4 times the size of any salad I'd buy in Europe. It was huge. And this was a moment where I was like, okay, yeah, I think America is somewhere that I want to live, you know, because I felt like I got more bang for my buck, you know, and I'm a big guy and I need food anyway. So it was amazing, you know, and I sat and I ate that salad. But it would turn out that I would have to wait almost maybe like 3 hours for this model to come back. And this model was playing football or something at Central Park at the time. Obviously, like, you know, I'd already had experiences of other models. Like, they don't really care about new models, you know, and you can't really ask them to be responsible. A lot of models take the job as, you know, as have as much fun as possible in as short amount of time as possible, which is a healthy way to take it. If you ever got signed to an agency, or if you're interested in being signed to an agency and you're young and you've been to agencies and someone has taken you on, etc., the best way to approach it is to have fun. You know, have fun. Make sure you look good and you hit your castings, but have fun, because it's short-lived for a lot of people. A lot of people don't make money, so just take the opportunities that you have to have fun and meet new people, etc. But anyway, the model eventually showed up and unlocked the door, and it was something like 6 stories high, this building, and our apartment was at the very top of the building. And so I'm lugging all my suitcases up the stairs and all this kind of stuff. I get into this apartment, right, and it is tiny, like so tiny. Eventually, like 4 or 5 of the other guys turned up, and I learned that we're all going to be sleeping in this small little room in the back, which had 2 bunk beds. It was such a small room. It had 2 bunk beds and it was filled with everybody's stuff, and the apartment was disgusting and dirty and humid and stuffy, and there was someone that was staying on the couch. The couch was like a pull-out couch, so people would be sleeping on that too. So there was almost 5 models to an apartment which was built for 1 person. Maybe 2, but honestly that would even be a stretch for how small this apartment was. And as I say, back then I still didn't realize at this point that my agency was charging me for everything. So I was being charged for this apartment, and I was being charged almost $1,000 a month. I think it was even more than that. I think it was like $800 a week for this apartment that I was sharing with 6 other guys that was tiny and really didn't have much amenities whatsoever. I don't think it even had air conditioning, honestly. So during the hot months, we'd just have fans blasting and try and make the most out of that. But I got into the apartment, it stinks of weed. The other models are like sitting down and rolling up joints, and they put the TV on and they're playing video games, and basically it's just like a fucking smokehouse. Excuse my language. It's just like a smokehouse, and I'm with all these other guys who have no interest in me really whatsoever. But this is one of my first experiences of making it work, you know. So everyone that I was in the apartment with, I was friendly with. I didn't really make any like real lasting connections with these guys. As I say, male modeling is like really competitive, like girl modeling, female modeling. So people don't really want to listen to you or hear what you have to say or anything, and that's fine. It is what it is. I smoked a little bit of weed at the time, so I indulged. This is when I learned about bike delivery services in New York, which is also highly illegal, but it is what it is. And yeah, and this was going to be my home for the next 4 weeks. One of the most pressing things about this trip to New York was I had a real like time crunch, because in 4 weeks' time I had to go back to England because one of my childhood best friends was getting married at the time, and I was not going to miss that. And so I go into my agency a couple of days later, and it was way easier with these guys. As soon as I got in, I met my head booker. He was a charming Englishman. He was so charming. He was just, I loved him from the moment that I met him, and I felt a lot of trust for him the moment that I met him, because he was like a big shiny New York agent, and I just thought he was the coolest guy in the world. He spoke like 4 different languages. He had so much respect within the agency. I was just so impressed by him. I'm not going to name names really, because I'm going to go into a lot of stuff and I just don't want to out these people really. You know, yeah, I just don't want to out these people too much. But hey, if I get enough comments and all this kind of stuff and people asking me, then maybe I will. But before I get big, or if I get big, I definitely don't want to be outing people just yet, because I don't want my channel to get crushed. But yeah, that's how paranoid I am after 10 years in the modeling industry. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, and so I went into my agency and I got sent down to the accounts, and I had to set up my social security and all this kind of stuff, and set up my accounts and like learn stuff. This is when I realized that I got charged something like $300 just for the taxi from the airport to my apartment. It wasn't a regular taxi, it was like a black cab. It was like a really good taxi, like a limousine taxi. I got charged that, and I got charged for my hotel room, and charged for my books, and charged for my like modeling cards, which are like these cards that they send around, or I take around to all castings, and I give them a card at the end with my face on it and the shoots that I've done, and it's just one single card. You get charged quite a lot of money for those. I think it was like $200 each time, maybe even more. It might have even been like $400. It was a lot of money. And so yeah, I learned about some of the charges and stuff, but at the same time, this agent was super excited to see me, and I wasn't about to mess this up. So, you know, straight away I go into my agency and I'm excited about the castings that are going to send me on, the people that I'm going to meet, etc, etc. But really that didn't happen. This whole trip in New York, which was like for 4 weeks, I spent about 3 weeks of it really not having anything to do. And it was quite worrying for me, because I was like, I thought I was going to come over here and be a star. I didn't realize back then that modeling takes a long time. The modeling machine takes a long time to start churning in these places. And so now I know if I go to a country, I would wait maybe 2 months until people in town really start to learn that I'm there and that I'm available, and so I can start booking castings and jobs. You know, it takes like quite a long time for everything to get rolling. It's a slow industry. It's slow to release. There's a lot of backlog. You know, they book a lot of models in advance, so they don't have like openings and stuff. And I didn't realize this at the time. But yeah, so I was going to be in New York, and New York was beautiful, and I went everywhere. I went to Canal Street. It was absolutely crazy for me. It was so busy. Everyone on the street corners selling stuff. Like Broadway was just these huge buildings on every side. I'd lived in London, but London was nothing in comparison to like the claustrophobia of Manhattan. And so I spent a lot of my time walking around and just seeing New York and experiencing it. There was a few times when I walked from 94th and 2nd, which is where I was living, all the way down to Broadway, like all the way down Broadway and Canal Street, which, you know, if you look on a map, it's a long distance. And I'd just walk and I'd just see the sights, and I'd get to learn New York. I went to 42nd Street and saw all of that stuff, and I did all the touristy stuff. But not very many castings, really not many castings at all. The biggest thing that happened to me when I was in New York was I had a meeting. And I had a meeting with this company called models.com, which if none of you guys know, models.com pretty much just archives every single thing that every single model in the industry is doing. And I didn't really know who they were. I hadn't looked at the website very much. So, you know, so I didn't really know what I was doing, but I had a meeting with them, and it was at my agency. It was at New York Models on Broadway, and it was there, and I remember, yeah, basically them coming in and taking some pictures, and then I was basically going to have like a little interview, but I didn't really know what it was for. But lo and behold, a couple of weeks after I did that, my pictures go up in their blog. And so they go up on their website, and it's new face of the week, which, you know, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm the new face of the week out of all of these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of models. I'm the new face of the week. And it felt really good. I wasn't a huge fan of the pictures because I didn't like what I was wearing. I was wearing like a sailor outfit. That's the only way that I can really describe it. But yeah, I was wearing like a sailor outfit. And so I wasn't a huge fan of the pictures. And this is probably the start of when I started to kind of beat myself up about how I presented myself in pictures. It was all fine and dandy, like going into a shoot and getting my hair and my makeup done, and and having all that, having like lovely clothes, but still, like, the clothes that I wore were really unfashionable, like not cool. They didn't like work well for me and how I looked and my look, etc. It just didn't really work that well. So when I got these pictures back, I was a little miffed about my self-presentation and how I looked. And those pictures ended up being used for years, like years and years and years. Even when I was like 7 years older, those pictures were still being used, and I was like, ugh, why didn't I think about this? Think about it. Just think about it. It's really hard. Get an objective opinion from other people. It's hard to like look at yourself in these veins, but get an objective opinion and have a look at it, because if you're starting out modeling, every picture that gets taken, every picture that you put on Instagram is going on the internet, and it's going on the internet forever. All of my pictures are on the internet, and they're going to be there forever, like ever and ever and ever. People are always going to be able to Google me. They're always going to be able to find out everything I've done and all the pictures that I've ever taken, me and my worst moments and my best moments. They're always going to be able to find that. So yeah, I went up on models.com, sorry, and I was the face of the week and all this kind of stuff, and so I was quite excited, but I still hadn't made any money, and I hadn't done any shoots, I hadn't done any editorials, I hadn't even done test shoots. I did one test shoot, which was like in this person's garage, but it wasn't really for anything, and the pictures, didn't really do anything for me. Again, I think I was in my own clothing and my own hairstyling and stuff, so it really wasn't that great of a photo shoot for me in terms of my career. And I felt like, because I'd gone to New York and they told me that I was going to be a star, I really assumed like I was going to hit the ground running and I was going to really make a lot of money and do a lot of editorial, and my image and my profile was really going to be heightened to an extreme degree. But that really didn't happen. And so I'm starting to get really depressed. I'm starting to get a little depressed, like thinking that everything was going to turn out this way, but it was all just, talk to big me up and to get me to make the jump, because obviously I was really just focused on making money. And even though I wanted to go to New York, the only reason I wanted to go there was because I thought I was going to make money, and I didn't make any money. And all of a sudden I had like $4,000 worth of debt with my agency. Actually I think it might have been more. Like it was racking up, and it was racking up in other countries too, and it's very, very frightening. And one of the things which brought me like a little bit of a salve of relief was all these other stories about models who had done the same thing and nothing had happened and they never had to pay it back. So in my head I was like, I might have to pay it back, or I might just run. So yeah, nothing was really happening, and it was a little scary and a little depressing. And then this wedding was coming up, and so I went into my agency and I was like, listen, I've got to go. I can't stay here any longer. I told you at the beginning, I've got this flight booked. And back then, like, booking a flight, there was no way I was going to change a flight. There was no way I was going to change a flight. Changing a flight cost like an extra $400 or something like that. $400 I didn't have. $400 that was going to come out of my future paycheck, and I just didn't have it. And I didn't want to spend any more money, and it was really frightening. And most importantly as well, I wanted to go to my friend's wedding. I really wanted to. Like, back in these days, I was like, if I'm going to have these relationships going through my life, and these relationships have been quite important to me when I was growing up, if I'm going to have them, then I have to make these commitments, And I'll never forget walking into my agency saying that I needed to leave and that I needed to go. And I'll never forget my agent saying, Jamie, stay here for one more week, just one more week. But if I stay for one more week, I've not going for my friend's wedding, and I miss out, and I'm not there for him, and all this kind of stuff. And it felt terrible, but at the same time I was like, this is a big choice, and this, my agent is like really specific on me staying one more week, and even though I haven't done any work, maybe there's something in it. He did say that he was going to make me a star, so maybe something's in it. And so I stay for one more week, nothing's happening again. And then in the last 3 days, I get a casting and they don't tell me anything about this casting. They don't tell me what it's for, etc., etc. And it's at this place called Chelsea Pier Studios, which is on the west side of Manhattan. And I rock up to this casting, and I have my modeling portfolio with me, and I'm sat on this chair, you know, just sort of waiting for this person to come. It's one of my, you know, few castings that I had there. And then all of a sudden, a woman comes out, and she introduces herself, and I'm like, oh, hey, I'm Jamie, I'm here for a casting, here's my book. And she's like, oh, I don't need to see that. Actually, I just need to check that you could speak English. That's all I really needed to know. So thank you very much. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. See you later. Thank you very much for the thing. You know, thanks for seeing me. And so I leave this casting, and I'm like, oh my God, nothing is going to happen. I didn't even meet the photographer. They didn't even take pictures. I had my best looks ready for them. You know, I was going to pull it out of the bag. I was going to be like, pow! You know, I was going to give them my best blue steel, but I didn't even get a chance to do that. The horror. And then, so I left that casting, and I went back to my agency, and I'm sat there, and I'm like, oh, you know, at New York Models, I used to sit there quite a bit, and just talk with the agents, and I'd sit on like this like stool in a corner, and I'd just like chat with the agents. Because my agent was English, we really got on very well in terms of our humor and all that kind of stuff. So I used to hang out quite a lot at the agency, and I think they really kind of like wanted that, you know. Unlike my other agencies that just wanted to see you and then you get the hell out of there as soon as possible, New York was a little bit different in that regard. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm just chatting with everyone and chatting with the agents and all that kind of stuff, and my head booker gets a phone call, and he's on the phone call. He's like, yeah, okay, yeah, sounds good, okay, cool. Puts the phone down, takes his headset off, stands up, and he announces to the whole agency, the women bookers over there, our men bookers over here, he announces to the whole agency, Jamie Wise has just booked his first campaign for Zara. And I was sitting there, he didn't even tell me. Everyone shoots up and starts clapping, and I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? I booked Zara? I'm going to be in Zara? And Zara was huge for me because it's one of the few brands which I always bought my stuff from when I was, when I had first made that move into trying to look better, you know. It's this company that I knew so much about. I see them everywhere. It's a commercial company. This contract was worth $35,000. It was a big contract. And not only that, but also it was going to get me more work, you know. All of a sudden, like, I was going to be on the map. And then at the same time, this is in the last few days of New York, at the same time, he gets a call from my Paris agent, and my Paris agent tells him, Jamie has just booked L'Officiel Homme Europe, which is a high fashion men's magazine. And basically it was 5 different covers for the same magazine. And so I was going to be shooting in 5 different countries with 5 different photographers, 5 different covers for one of the biggest men's fashion magazines in the world. At the same time that I booked the Zara campaign. So, you know, I'd made a lot of money, I'd done a huge commercial client, and I'd also got this editorial which was going to raise my profile to astronomical levels within such a short time, you know. And that's the truth about this. It's the thrill and the agony, you know. They say that in MMA, the thrill and the agony. And that's how it was. It was like that for my whole career, you know. These like massive paychecks dangled at the end of my nose alongside these non-paying but high-profile projects which I knew would get me to a height in the industry that I wanted to be at, so that I could make more money, so that I could get more recognition, so I could try and angle it into my acting and becoming an actor, you know. As I say, like back in one of the first videos, all the people that I saw that were on the posters for the West End in London, they were all like B-list celebrities with a name, and all of a sudden I thought I might be able to get there, and that might allow me to actually get into the West End, you know. And so I was so excited, but I was also incredibly scared, because within the next 2 weeks as I say, I had to fly to 5 different countries. Then I had to fly to a small island to do a fitting for Zara, and then continue that editorial shoot to other countries, and then fly back to another country to shoot the Zara campaign. So I had all of these, like, I had about, I don't know, like 15, 16 flights within the space of 7 days, which I had to make. And if I missed a single one of them, my career was over. You know, like I would never be forgiven by my agents. I would never be forgiven by the photographers and the other people that I shot with, etc. So I'm super excited, but I'm super nervous, and I'm on my way back to England. And that'll be the end of this chapter. And in the next chapter, in the next chapter, I'll tell you exactly what happens. In the next chapter, I switch agencies. So I moved from M&P Models in London to a new agency. I do all these 5 different shoots, which I'll go into in detail. I do the Zara campaign, and that'll be the next chapter. Thanks for listening. It's been a ramble, but hey, I hope you followed along. Please leave a comment, like and subscribe, and yeah, please, it'll help out the algorithm, and you know, all the comments and the likes and stuff just, you know, inspire me to make more. Even though I'm going to make these regardless, it's nice to be inspired and listened to, and know that people are finding it interesting. So thank you, like and subscribe. I'm Jamie Wise, and yeah, thank you very much.